Good evening, VCV fans on LinkedIn and Facebook. This is our weekly broadcast that we are doing. It's called A Road to Military Sexual Trauma Conference that's going to be attended on 26-27. What we're going to do once a week, or every Wednesday, 8 o'clock, we're going to have a guest on who's a panelist, either expert, influencer, or a resource. And so today I'm really excited to present attorney Rebecca Deming. Now, this is a recording. I just want to make sure you bring everybody. This is a recording, just to let you know that what's going on is at 8 o'clock. So again, this is going to happen again tonight at 8 o'clock for our MST conference, 26-27 August. Sit back and enjoy our show with attorney Rebecca Demings on the legal rights when it comes to filing a claim for military sexual trauma. Enjoy. Did you know that women veterans have twice the rate of suicide than non-women veterans? And the main reason why is military sexual trauma? Didn't know that, did you? And have you seen all these things the last several years about what happened with Vanessa Gillen and lots more survivors? Constant talk, instead of being about it. Well, Veterans Council Veterans is going to be about it. And we always ask when we do something, what's your why? What's your why? Why is this so important to you, Veterans Council Veterans? I'm going to tell you why right now.
This morning I posted a fucking TikTok about how fucking unfair it is that I've dedicated my life to the military and the Marine Corps and everything that I've done, and that I was able to see my fucking perpetrator in court, and how much it fucking sucked that he was being forced out of the military, that he would be getting an honorable discharge. Well, not even fucking 10 minutes ago, I just got word that this motherfucker will be getting retained because it went all the way up across the board. Everybody said that they would not retain him. And the fucking head honcho, the fucking CG, with all of the proof and a fucking admission to guilt, decided that they will retain him. And this is exactly why fucking females in the military fucking kill themselves. This is exactly why nobody fucking takes us seriously. Yo, what the fuck?
Absolutely. She should be upset, and we should be doing something about it instead of talking. And we're going to talk about it. And this, what you're going to see now is that as Veterans Council together and get ready, prepare for is Military Sexual Trauma Conference, 26-27 August, to provide a military veteran like that some relief and actually having stuff being done. On 26-27 August, we're going to have our conference at USF Tampa. And it's going to be a conference that you've never seen before. It's going to impact. It's going to combine the resources to the survivors, and we're going to finally get something done. Starting with our road to our conference is a weekly broadcast of these expert, influencer, a resource that provides support for military sexual trauma survivor. But until then. So here we go. I want to introduce a guy. Like I said on the weekly broadcast, we're going to have an influencer, expert, or resource. And I want to sit there and this is one of the second of our episodes. You already saw the first one with the Keija. Now we're going to second one that I tell you this lady here, even though she's not a veteran, she's a spousal veteran. She has done so much. And it's, you know what? She's actually been in Afghanistan during the time of this our conflict or war, but she worked for the USAID. But she's done a lot more than that. She's also a military spouse. She's been involved in military issues all her life. That's one of her passions. That's what she does as far as when she for her private practice. And she's somebody that I'll always say personifies being about it. Her name is Rebecca Demings, and I want to introduce Rebecca Demings to our show.
Hi, Tony.
How you doing, Rebecca?
Great. Thanks for having me.
I am so glad that you're on this show. I'm so glad because we wanted to make sure that this conference was not just a check the block conference, but a conference that will have impact. And you being there, addressing some of the legal parts and everything there, just brings that home. And just for audience out there, if you don't know, the last panel, we're going to have a question answer session for the benefits, claims, and Legal. And Rebecca is one of that. So if you have any questions, bring them on, Rebecca. So Rebecca, welcome. Give us some more backdrop of all the things you've been doing since that made the military and the veterans part of your passion.
So I actually met my husband in Afghanistan. I was working with USAID and the rule of law, working with the judges over there in about 2011, 2012. I came back. I enjoyed working with the military, although it was definitely a transition from civilian life, to be sure. But I kept working with the military and doing trainings, pre-deployment trainings on the civilian engagement. And I worked a lot with UN peacekeepers and the military training that U.S. State Department provides to UN peacekeepers in Africa. And so a lot of the same issues that we have in our military, we're seeing in our partners' militaries too. And that video you showed us, it really strikes home, but on so many different levels. I mean, you understand watching her why a lot of people don't report, because to go through all of that and to have to relive your trauma and then just have your perpetrator get retained in the military afterwards is devastating. So there's so many people that didn't report for a number of reasons. But the after effects of all the different kinds of sexual trauma that people experience is major. I mean, it really impacts, like you say, Tony, it impacts the family. It's not just the individual, but it impacts community. I could go down so many rabbit holes with it.
I know, we're definitely gonna have you back because we want to go out. We want to go down some of those rabbit holes. And I know what we had mentioned before about there's a lot of male sexual assault survivors as well. And obviously, with your husband and him being in the military and that kind of stuff. Tell us about some of the difficulties they got to go through of trying to, when they get assaulted.
We were talking about it before, Tony. I think so. After working directly with the military, when my husband retired, I started learning about the VA disability benefits side. And so now that's what I do day to day is I work with veterans who are trying to get their VA disability benefits. And the number of male clients that come to me that have some sort of sexual trauma or something happened to them in service, but they just felt a sense of shame because it's not, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't want to dive too far outside my lane, but what they express is that there's a deep sense of shame, even though there's nothing for them to be ashamed about by having been abused or having experienced some of this. And so they swallow it and they live with it, and then their families deal with it down the road. And so sometimes, I've got clients that served during the Vietnam era that are only now starting to get treatment for mental health. And when they start now, they're saying, okay, and their wives will say, oh, so he's not just an asshole, or he's not just now I understand why he might have had some issues going forward because he's bottled this up. And sometimes they don't even tell their families about it for decades until after it happens. And so that's a lot for anyone to live with. And it definitely has an impact on the family.
And one of the good things about this conference, we're going to have psychologists there. And so, we're going to get such a mixture of psychologists and mental health counselors and just the advocates and supporters. So hopefully we get a chance. But there is a psychology, but your strength is going to be, of course, the legal side. Mm-hmm. And that's why we bring you on to sit there and give us on the legal side. And one of our people that we interviewed talked about it. It took her a lot of denials before she finally got, because she waited so long. Sometimes it doesn't manifest itself until years later. And she's functional. Mm-hmm. Another thing, the functional piece. Oh, well, you're functional. It could be that bad.
Right. And that's a lot of people will say, well, yeah, I had this happen to me in service, but not only did I not report it at the time, but I didn't get treatment at the time. So how can I now, 20 years later, 10 years later, say that my mental health problems are a disability that's related to service? But it takes them that long to kind of process it and get to a place where they can put a label on it and start to kind of dig down to the origin of some of the stuff they're dealing with. And that's, I don't want to say I love working on those cases because they're painful, but I love working with the people that have gone through those traumas and helping them get some relief from getting their stories heard and recognizing, getting them the benefits that they deserve.
What I want to, I want to show something to you real quick. Just get a little tidbit. Can't give too much away from, because we want them to come, right? We want them to come to our event on 26th, 27th August. But I want to show you this video real quick and get your thoughts about it.
What's acceptable and what's not acceptable. When they come into our Army, we need to be very clear about what's okay and what's not okay.
Congress passed significant military justice reform, taking prosecution of assault cases out of the chain of command. That should help with soldiers who told us they fear retaliation.
It got to the point where I didn't just wish that I never reported, I wish that I'd never joined. I wish that I was dead.
The reason that many women and some men don't report is the fear of retaliation. That's right, from the U.S. Army itself.
Let's talk about that. Now, I know they kind of mix one with the other, because we talked, what the first part was about the prosecution being pulled out, and the other thing is about retaliation, and those would be two separate things. But what did you think about one of the things that was recommended by the committee, and I think and Secretary Austin accepted that recommendation about taking the prosecution away from the chain of command and just put it like something that's done by itself. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's important. I think it's critical. We were talking about it before, Tony. I think when there's minor infractions, it's good for the command to have a certain level of discretion to handle minor things. But when you're talking about sexual assault, sexual abuse, anything in that realm at all, you can't be mixing somebody's performance. Are they a strong soldier, strong Marine, or what have you, with the criminal charges that are coming up against them. That should not be something that's in the chain of command. That needs to be handled outside.
Actually, before, and I will, and again, this is, we need to do a deep dive, and maybe we'll talk about later on too, is that, I always say, be careful what you ask for, like catch a tiger by the tail. Mm-hmm. Because is that better? You think it's better, but you may find out that, like the civilians got a very, and my wife, I can say on this line here, but my wife's, that's what she did when she was in the police force. She did the domestic violence, which is not just, it's the same, but not the same because of the sexual assault piece. And, it's usually a tough something to prosecute. So, do you have a better success rate than, you have a better success rate in the military when it comes to sexual assault?
The civilian versus the military success rate? Yeah. I don't know if I think when you're talking about civilian prosecution rates, you're talking about state laws and local prosecution offices, local district attorney offices. And so that's going to vary greatly across the U.S. When you're talking about the military, they are trying to put together a unified policy. Obviously, it's different, even from Navy to Army to Air Force. They have slightly different implementation, slightly different. It's all the Uniform Code of Military Justice, but the way that they handle the NJP, non-judicial prosecutions, are going to be slightly different across the branches. But it is a lot more unified. So, to say one has a better rate than the other, I think would be challenging to compare numbers. But what's important is the military, all branches of the military, benefit from having women in the service. Women, peace, and security is essential to national security. It's essential to all of our efforts overseas. The insights and the value that women bring to the service are incredible. And there's challenges. There's from transitioning from an all-male military less than 100 years ago to integrating women, not just because it's the right thing to do, because that's where we are in 2022, but because of the value that women bring to the service. I think sexual assault is one of the issues that keep women out of the service, whether they don't join because they're afraid of it, because they hear the numbers of women cadets that are abused during the military colleges or in basic training or whatever, or they do join, like this young woman, and I'm not sure how long she was in the service, but they join and then something happens and they regret their decision to ever join and they leave without when she might have been general materials, she might have been an excellent leader. You know, we don't know what her contributions could have been to the service, and as Americans, as a military organization, you know, we're losing out on her contribution. As Americans, we're losing out on it. So it is something that impacts all of us.
And just to mention, just for the people watching, that we also know that men are also assaulted, and in fact, if you just go, don't look at the percentage, look at the numbers. There are probably more men because of the number wise than we, and are we even ready for that? So it's not just, even though it definitely affects women as far as percentage wise, but if you look at numbers, it may be even more astronomical, and we got to make sure we got that going on. And that before so I want to just talk about this. You'll hear more. You'll see Rebecca, and we'll have a great discussion. Whatever questions you have, bring them on the 26th, 27th of August at USF Tampa. It's going to be at the CW Bill Young Hall, or sometimes it's called the Military Leadership Joint Military Leadership Center. But definitely, if you want to hear about more, or you want to have questions, this is the time. This is the place to go, and you can sit there and listen and ask questions to Rebecca, and also Dwayne and other people part of the panel if you have any questions, because we need to know, we need to be educated. This is one of the themes of the conference is educate, connect, and empower, and this is where you'll get it on this end, because it's about the benefits and about that you deserve because of this. I want to make sure. That's why I'm so excited. So before we go, Rebecca, let's give us a nice little plug about our upcoming event.
So I think it's going to be a great event. We've got a wonderful panel of people, and we're going to dig into a lot of different issues, from the mental health side to the legal side, from the prosecution side, on legal side, from the prosecution side, to how do you prove your benefits if you didn't report it right away, and prove that you're entitled to benefits through the VA, even if you didn't report it right away. And hopefully some of this town hall style meetings, we're going to come up with some solutions that maybe we can propose to the military, but definitely from the people who are attending, I think you're going to get a lot out of it from our panelists and from each other as well.
Great, and I know this before we just talk about, I see that ProVet, so I see that already, read it back there. So give us a real quick about ProVet and what it does.
So ProVet Legal is my law firm. We represent veterans and their family members in their appeals for getting VA disability benefits and survivor benefits. Unfortunately, sometimes I've represented surviving spouses when a veteran has taken their life. Challenging times, but we have to show that a veteran has a disability and that the disability is connected somehow to service. And so sometimes, especially when time has passed, that's the challenge, that's the hurdle that we're working with, is proving that something is related to service. And mental health is definitely a challenging one. It's interesting. It's so important, though, because it impacts every facet of people's lives.
Great. Thank you for having me on, Rebecca, and we can't wait to see you on the 26th and 27th of August on the panel for the benefits, claims, and legal, where you hear so much about it. And whatever you learn, you can use that when you want to try to put in your claim or if you get denied. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thanks.
I will see you on the other side on 26, 27, and USF Tampa.
Thanks, Tony.
There you have it. So you got one of our panelists. So there you go. That was Rebecca Deming. She said there she's an attorney. Her husband's in the military. He was in the military. That's why she is pursuing a passion for veterans. She's going to be one of our panelists. This panel, I'll tell you what, this conference is I call it a God assignment. I don't say that very lightly. This panel this conference will consist of military structural trauma in the family, because family members also, if you get PTSD, depression, all that kind of stuff, it passes on, becomes generational, as well as suicide. This panel will have social determinants. We want to show people who are involved in an MST survivor's life that could affect them. That could be legal, that could be faith, that could be unemployment, and that. So you're going to have that kind of panel called social determinants. We have 2 panels of military structural trauma survivors, and it's very diverse. So that way you hear more than one story. It's important you hear more than story, because sometimes the solution is not always one fit. One fit does not fit them all. We're going to have what you just saw with Rebecca, and also a benefit expert. We're going to give you 90 minutes of just asking questions. So bring the questions, bring the conference, ask people like Rebecca about what you need to do, where you need to go, all that kind of stuff. But I tell you, if people out there who would put claims in for MST, you would get denied. You would denied a couple of times before you finally get it. We want to make sure that you're equipped as much as possible. So this is where our conference is coming up on the 26th, 27th of August here in USF Tampa, the C.W. Bill Young. Register. Come on, let's make this thing happen. We're the only one that does this. This should be comprehensive. You got to tell your friends. You got to register. We got to get this thing going. We got to start talking about it and being about it. Now, next week, I'm so excited to what I got to show you for next week, because next week we have with us Gina Garcia. She's a producer, writer. She has her own movie out on Amazon on her experience, her life, her journey as a MST survivor. And you'll learn a lot. Again, she's also a panelist. I'm telling you, this conference will be people that resources you have not have seen at a reasonable price. We want you to be there. You got to be there. And this conference is not just for MST survivors. Gina calls it MST strivers, but this is for the family member. This is for mental health providers. Anybody who wants to help that veteran out that's struggling for MST, trying to manage MST. This is this conference is for. So I'm just saying to you, my call to action to you: share, register, and I will see you again on our. Well, I got a CEO update on Monday at 12 o'clock, and we also have our next guest, Gina, on at 8 o'clock next Wednesday. Until then, this is Veterans Counseling Veterans. See you then.